I'm wondering how the conversation with Connor McDavid went. You've been his agent for a long time, and how you sort of went from being his agent to now kind of his boss's boss, and how that relationship works.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it last week in the press conference. Like when I when I started the discussions with the Oilers, I talked to Connor about it. I let him know that they had reached out, wanted to get his thoughts. We've been together a long time, have a close relationship. He trusts me, I trust him, and given it's the Oilers, I wanted his take on it. He basically said to me, like, I think that you should talk to Daryl. Explore it. I think you'd do a great job. And if that's your decision, like, I'm supportive of that. And, that was the basis of the first discussion. And then, we had a couple other discussions, and, ultimately when I told him that I was decided I wanted to pursue it, he was like, okay, that's great. Like, now we're on the same team for real. and that's kind of where we're at now.
With Jeff Jackson, the new CEO of hockey operations out in Edmonton. As a former player yourself, Jeff, I mean, obviously you're aware of the inner workings of the room, and like you mentioned your long-term relationship with Connor, where I'm sure you were probably a guy that he could lean on, and a guy that he could call and talk to if he's never really in slumps, but if he was, he could talk to you. He could talk to you about what's happening in the room, and he knew that would be a cone of silence type of situation. I would assume that won't happen anymore, just based on, the unwritten rules of the room. What happens in the room stays in the room, and now you're a part of the executive team. Do you see it that way? Do you expect your relationship to change based on him being a player and now you being an executive with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will change for sure. The agent-player relationship is unique. I can tell you, like, that he never called me and talked to me about, his teammates or complaining about his teammates or anything like that. Like, that's sort of not the way Connor is. We talked a lot about the team, about, his desires, his kind of, thoughts on where they can improve. He's a really smart young man, not just a really great hockey player, and he's very analytical. So we would talk about that sort of thing. I think that part of it won't change because, we have the common goal of trying to make the team better and trying to compete and win. But I'm certainly not going to leverage a relationship to try to find out things that are going on in the room. I respect the players. I respect the sanctity of the relationships that are in there. I was a player myself, and I've worked for a team before. I get all that part of it, and I would never put him in a position to kind of compromise that.
Jeff, as a guy who grew up in Edmonton and worked there, I can tell you that the psychic trauma that Oiler fans have experienced leads to their worst fear. And it's 3 years away from him being an unrestricted free agent. It's a long way off. But Oiler fans even now talk about, is Connor going to stay? And how cognizant are you of that sort of fear in Edmonton?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to keep the core of this team together. There's an amazing core of players, and it's headed by Connor and Leon Draisaitl. You've got Darnell Nurse on a long-term deal. You got Zach Hyman, who's an important player. Ekholm's an important player. Nugent Hopkins, all these guys. Evan Bouchard's moved into that kind of realm. So, to your point about Connor, I think that he loves playing at Edmonton. I know that. He's been embraced by the city. He's had some amazing years there. As long as this team is competing to win the Stanley Cup every year, I think we're in a good position to continue the relationship for a long time. And that's on the players to play well, and that's on us in management to make sure that we're putting the very best group of players together every year. And it's going to, you're going to make changes. You're going to try to improve. You're going to have to get some luck. You're going to have stay away from injuries. You're going to have to get good goaltending, all that stuff. As long as we're doing that, I think we're going to be in a position because I know that he loves playing there to keep him long term, but there's no guarantees.